Alright, hello again. In this video we're going to do something a little different. We're going to step away from the demonstrations and things like that. We're going to go ahead and just chat a little bit about a little controversial topic, which is weird because on the surface it's a yes or no question. And that question is, do distributions matter? Does it matter really which Linux distribution I use? Now, I can already see some of you sharpening your pitchforks and cleaning your guns, but hear me out. The answer to that question is it depends. On one hand, it does matter. On the other hand, it does not matter. And this is a subject that many YouTubers have brought up in the past, and they end up getting flame broiled in the comment section over it, over people that disagree. So you're more than welcome to do that here. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but electrons never hurt me. So here we go. It does not matter in certain contexts, and it absolutely does matter in other contexts. So let me give you an example of both. It does matter because how the distribution is created, how it is built, how the individual packages work together, how they are configured, and how they are installed as dependencies or not as dependencies, that is where it matters. For example, in Linux Mint, let's talk about that in the Ubuntu long-term support base that it has. If you get down and look at the statistics, 99.9% of the packages that are available for Linux Mint come directly from the Ubuntu repository. So that means that Linux Mint starts at 99% Ubuntu. So why is it called Mint? That's where the difference is. Linux Mint has its own repository. Last time I checked, and that was a couple years ago, so these numbers may be wrong. A couple years ago, there was about 400, maybe 500 packages. That makes up an extremely small percentage of the total of 70,000 plus packages that are available through the Ubuntu ecosystem. And Ubuntu inherits that from Debian. 400 packages based on, compared to 70,000 packages is small and insignificant. However, that is where the difference is. Linux Mint is different than Ubuntu because of those 400 packages. So yes, it does matter. You can configure Arch and Debian in much the same way. In fact, I am going to do a series here next after this rambling is over with, showing you how I personally Debian. This is my personal build. This is how I actually install and configure Debian myself. I'm a longtime Debian user. I am not a fanboy of Debian. It is my favorite operating system. And when I go through my series, I'll show you why I personally think it is the best distribution out there. Your mileage may vary. You may try my method and you go, this is the grossest thing I've ever seen. And you're more than welcome to disagree. That's part of education, as we learn from each other, even if we learn through disagreements. So anyway, you have that context, and Arch is different than Debian as far as that philosophy goes. So is Ubuntu, so is Void, so is OpenSUSE. It's all different in that context, and whether the distribution matters or not can be judged by those differences. Now, where the answer to that question falls under the no category, no, their distributions are all the same, comes into play more on the surface, and it's more along the lines of usage. For example, I can create a very long video on how I install Debian, like I just said I was going to do, and then I can turn around and make another video exactly the same thing but using Arch. And when I am done, the desktop will look, act, feel, smell, taste exactly the same. This is where the answer to no comes in. No, it doesn't really matter which distribution you use, because if the distribution is done correctly, it can look and feel exactly the same, whether you're using Debian, whether you're using Arch, whether you're using Void, or whatever other Linux distribution you want. You can make your desktop look and feel and smell the exact same on no matter which distribution you're at. And there's also another context where this no is applicable, and that is when it comes to usability from familiarity and experience. If you've been using Linux for as long as I have, or maybe even just a fraction of the time that I have, you'll notice that you can Arch just as well as you can Fedora, just as well as you can Debian. You can pounce between the three. In fact, I have literally had to do a uname in a command line just so I can figure out which distribution I'm on because I forgot. Because the desktop looks and acts the exact same way. I'm like, okay, am I on Fedora or am I on Debian? So I go to try to install a package and it says apt command not found. Oh, well, I guess I'm on Fedora. So sudo dnf. Oh, yep, there it is. I'm on Fedora. That's because the differences become so minute that we can adapt to them, and we ourselves are what is shifting. We ourself is what's adjusting to make up the difference between Debian or Arch or Fedora or whatever. It is us with our knowledge and our experience that completely negate the differences between the distributions. So with that said, as with all things in life, the deeper you look at something, the more complex the subject becomes. In fact, you can argue that in the realm of philosophy, there is no such thing as a yes or no question. Because if I ask you a yes or no question and you counter with another question, you've just started down a rabbit hole. And everything can have a rabbit hole. Everything can be a rabbit hole. But anyway, that is my little short rambling for this video. Glad it wasn't too long. I was in fear that it was going to turn out to be a 30-45 minute thing, but I'm at 7 minutes now. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Again, if you like these videos, make sure you click that like button, smash the subscribe button. Tongue-tied for a second. Ring that notification bell. Let me know your experiences in the comment section. What do you feel on this subject? I don't care if your comments are negative or not. Just keep them respectful and constructive, and everything will be all right. I don't delete comments because they are in a disagreement. I delete and report because they're hateful. And as long as you stay away from that H word, we are good to go. Anyway, let me know in the comment section. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? To what degree? Wholeheartedly, or just a little bit? Or okay, well, yeah, I think you changed my mind a little bit. Just let me know. Let me know. We can discuss it. I have no problems discussing any topic. So anyway, have a good one, and we'll see you next time.